Hello students, in this module we will be continuing with the Delhi Sultanate, and now we will move on to the next dynasty. We have already done about the Mamluks or the slave dynasty, and then we moved on to Khilji dynasty, reading about Alauddin Khilji. In this dynasty, in this particular module, we will be doing about the third dynasty, and that, as you can see, we are talking about the Tughlaq dynasty. Under Tughlaq dynasty, as I have been telling you since from the beginning, each dynasty we will be taking up one important king. So here in the Tughlaq dynasty, we are talking about Muhannad bin Tuglaq. He was the one of the important leaders that we are going to talk about. Though most of his decisions failed, but what was the impact of those decisions, how they were conducted, and what was the reason why they were done and then you can say taken back or they failed, all that we are going to do. So his decisions were in the Muhammad bin Tughlaq. We'll be doing about the important topics as his transfer of capital, then his token currency which was introduced by him, later the taxation of Doab region, this is a particular name of the region, and then we have the plan of conquests that he had given. So this would be the last particular dynasty that we will be doing in the Delhi Sultanate. I told you out of 5 we will be doing 3 of them. Later we will see in general the administration on the Sultanate region, the Sultanate administration we have termed it as. So we will be doing in general what was the administration of the Sultanate, Delhi Sultanate, during these various dynasties in general. So here, beginning from the Tughlaq dynasty, we'll see that the ascension to the throne by Ghazi Malik had its own ups and downs. And so after we have done this Khilji dynasty, I told you that it was after Khilji dynasty, Ghazi Malik, the governor of Deepalpur, he was the one who ascended the throne. So here we can say when he ascended the throne, it was obviously a lot of ups and downs after being Khilji, Alauddin Khilji, who was a very impactful ruler or had a very vast rule, and then his particular administrator Malik Kafur, he controlled it nicely. So it was later after that particular empire or that dynasty being uprooted or taken away, it was a big turmoil in the kingdom at that time when Ghazi Malik took it. It was in 1320 he took the title of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq Shah and began the Tughlaq dynasty. So he took over this particular empire and then he took the title also, and that was Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq Shah, and this was in 1320. After this, when he took this title of Tughlaq, then it became the introduction or the beginning of the Tughlaq dynasty, and he died during the collapse of a pavilion built in his honor in 1325. So we can say the reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq was not very long. It was just, as a mere fact, we can see hardly 10-15 years, not more than that. So it is basically 1320 he took over the title. It was not that he started the kingdom then, he started a little bit before that, and by 1320 he took the title, and then after that within 5 years he died. And that too, his death was quite strange. He died just being because of the collapse of the pavilion, which was also obviously to build in the honor of the same king. So the pavilion which was supposed to give him the honor, which was built in his honor, was the one important reason which took away his life. Anyways, coming to the other parts of the Tughlaq's reign, we see first of all Ghiyasuddin was son of Jana Khan and ascended the throne and took the title of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. And he was one of the most remarkable rulers of his age. Though his empire was very short-lived, yet it was very impactful, and that is why he is one of the most prominent king of the Tughlaq dynasty. He had great interest in religion and philosophy, and he was a particular, you can say, laureate. He had mastered in mathematics, astronomy, logic, physical sciences. He was a lover of Persian language, whereas Persian literature, music, fine arts and calligraphy. So overall you can say he was a very talented king, a very talented person, as much as he had a beautiful side of his interests towards art and literature. Similarly, he had a very courageous side towards the administration and looking after the empire. So that is why we can say he was a combination of both the goods, but all those things could not make his empire reach to a very great height, and before he could achieve much more success than that, his life came to an end. So the important decisions that he took during his empire are as follows. First, we will be doing the transfer of the capital. So here we see that Muhammad bin Tughlaq's reign, the empire had also spread towards the south. As we know, Khilji did a lot about it, Alauddin, and when he took over the empire, he also worked hard and got the entire southern part, not entire, a lot of southern part also into this northern empire of the Tughlaqs. Now when he got this, he got his capital shifted from Devagiri near modern Aurangabad and named it Daulatabad. Now why he shifted his capital, there are few reasons for that. What were the reasons for his removing this particular capital, removing all the administration and shifting it towards the other new capital? Daulatabad was centrally located from where he could control the Deccan territories also. Looking from Delhi towards the south, it was very difficult because everybody knew from there you could not go right down to south in a very quick moment. And if anything happens, any problem arises, before the king reaches that particular place, it would be too late for any action to be started. So therefore he removed his capital towards the central part, because from there it was easy to move all the directions and to have a firm control in all the parts of the kingdom. Delhi was in grip of a severe famine at that time, so that was another reason which instigated him to shift the capital from Delhi to Daulatabad, because if Delhi had been the capital and the capital is in a famine, it would become too difficult for a king to manage his entire kingdom, because he will be more focused internally about the Delhi situation rather than focusing on the entire kingdom. So that is why Delhi was constantly threatened by the Mongols. We can say that during the Khilji's reign, Khilji massacred them and therefore there were no more particular such threats. But once he was gone, once again Mongols started having a threatening eye towards the Delhi Sultanate. They wanted to control it, they wanted to have a control of it, and therefore it was a complete threat that any time Delhi would be under the attack of Mongols. This simply meant if Delhi is gone, the capital city is gone and the king is gone, the entire kingdom in itself instantly will fall under the hands of the Mongols. So to just safeguard the entire kingdom, he decided to leave Delhi and move towards the Daulatabad. Now here we see he ordered the people of Delhi, including religious heads, to shift. All of them were shifted to Daulatabad, and later onwards he realized the seriousness of the threat towards the Delhi from the Mongols. He decided that this will be a lot of hardships to the people, and so once again the entire thing was reshifted back to Delhi. So over here we can say he realized his wrong decision quite late, when he had already shifted from Delhi to Daulatabad, and then coming to Daulatabad he realized what serious threat Mongols pose to Delhi and how big a threat it would be and what serious consequences it can have. Then he decided to once again go back to Delhi, and therefore it was a lot of wastage of time, wastage of resources, and even people doubted his decision over there. So this was something which was done for the safety and for the proper, you can say, goodwill, for the good of the empire. But still it turned out to be something, a plan which backfired, and he had to re-establish his empire, his capital in Delhi. Next we move on to his second decision, important decision, and that was the token currency. This was also an controversial step which was taken by Tughlaq. Another controversial step which Muhammad bin Tuglaq took was introduction of the token currency. It meant introduction of bronze, that was bronze tanka in place of silver tankas. Tanka is basically the currency which was used at that time. So earlier it was basically the silver tanka over there, and instead of that he decided to use bronze tanka. The silver metal was replaced by bronze. Now this was done because of the shortage of silver, so it's better to change silver with some other metal which was in abundance. It seemed to be very logical and very apt decision. But later onwards we see this experiment failed because of the circulation of fake currency, because every now and then anyone could get bronze, and it was very easy for people to make the coins and currencies at home. They could make fake currencies at a large scale, which caused chaos in the trade and commerce, and consequently he had to withdraw the this new tanka or the bronze currency, because people could easily make it at home, make it very easily, fake the currency. Everybody could get hold of bronze, and this led to a lot of chaos in economy, in trade and commerce especially. Therefore, once again, this was another big event or big particular plan which Tughlaq started, but it did not go as per the plan, and therefore he had to withdraw this bronze currency back, and once again the same had to go to the same old particular feature. You must have heard, or if not heard, if you go through the Hindi books or any particular such terms, old people, they usually had it as something known as Tughlaqi Farman. Tughlaqi Farman is basically a particular rule or a particular decision which a particular person gives and then regrets over it or takes it back. He realizes, oh, he has made a wrong mistake. So a person who usually takes a wrong step or usually do not think and take the steps, they are such steps or such decisions are usually called as Tughlaqi Farmans, because Tughlaq did a lot of such particular steps. He started such particular movements or decisions were implemented, and later he realized that they are not well or not appropriate, and he had to return back to the original or change his decision very frequently. So that was something which was you can say raised questions on his way of administration or looking after the problems. Here we see taxation and Doab. Muhammad bin Tuglaq wanted to conquer various territories, and not only in India but also in the central part of the Asia. For this he required large army, because he wanted to enlarge his empire even further beyond the boundaries of Indian subcontinent, and therefore he required a huge number of army. So for this particular big aspirational plan, big aspires, that big, you can say, visions that he had for his empire. For that reason, in order to get more revenue, he increased the land tax in the fertile region of Yamuna, Ganga Yamuna Doab region, and the severe famine broke out in the area and people refused to pay the extra taxes. And this was something which made way for a rebellion among the people, that there is a famine and the king is asking for more of the land revenue, land tax. But the tax collectors showed no mercy to the people, and took stern measures to collect the taxes. This made some of the peasants abandon their lands and they flee to jungles, and as a result, even the people turned against the rule, as well as the rule or the empire did not even get proper taxation from that particular region, just because of the wrong timing of the famine and the tax collection. Muhammad bin Tuglaq at this time took effective steps to fight the famine and save the situation. He ordered free distribution of grains and also gave loans to the peasants to improve irrigation facilities and all those things to manage properly once again the entire situation in the Doab region. But it was too late, and a number of people had already starved to death as agriculture suffered heavy setback in the Doab area. So this was something which was basically a step taken so that more important and more stronger army could be built. Rather, it backfired, or it went on a wrong direction, and more of the peasants died because of this, and more expenditure was done to help them out, to help them to reestablish. So this was another particular event. We cannot say that Tughlaq took a wrong decision this time, but it was the timings and the conditions turned out to be unfavorable and made his plan fail. Next we see the plan of conquests. As we already know, he had his particular plan of conquering many regions beyond the Indian subcontinent, for which he required huge army. So here we say he dreamt of conquering the world also. So he organized a huge army, and for this he instantly took a decision, and this huge army that he had prepared for a world conquer, he got them all the salaries for next full 1 year. And this was something which cost him a huge amount of money, that was given to these soldiers, a 1 full year's salary, and that was a huge amount of money because a lot of number of people were there in the army which he was dreaming to build to conquer the world. Now what happened? He then decided to conquer Khorasan, Persia and Iraq. But after a year, following the failure of the token currency, Muhammad bin Tuglaq abandoned the project and disbanded the army. So whatever money he had given there, that was a wastage. Token currency led to even the failure of this standing army, and this army was abandoned. So that money, that time, that expenditure, all that thing turned out to be all in vain. And this was another big setback to his administration. So here we can say these were some of the important steps that he wanted to take, or he did take, but because of the wrong timings, because some or the other faulty decisions or hasty decisions, they all turned out to be disastrous. So that finishes the entire explanation of the various dynasties in the Delhi Sultanate. Now we move on to the Sultanate administration in general. Here I'll read it out for you. The state set up by the Turks towards the end of the 12th century in northern India gradually developed into a powerful and a very highly centralized state. They just conquered the Turks, and when they left with the slave dynasty coming into being, it became a very strong sultanate in the country. The Sultan was the supreme executive, legislative, judicial, as well as the military authority. That means the Sultan was the whole soul in charge of the entire kingdom. He was the one who used to take decisions with all fronts, whether it was justice, whether it was military, administration, or whatever you might talk about related to the kingdom. The king had the overall control over that. The Sultan kept an eye on the revenue also and the expenditure also. That means the economy had to be maintained by the Sultan himself. Besides that, he was assisted by a number of ministers. Now the key figure in the administration was the Wazir or Wazir-e-Ala, as you can say. In modern day terminology, if we say, it was the Prime Minister or the Mukhyamantri of the entire panel of all the ministers for the king. The Wazir supervised the work of all the other officials, and final decisions were taken always by the Sultan. So the information was given by the Mukhyamantri or the Wazir or the Prime Minister about all the working of different offices, different spheres of kingship, but decisions were all taken by Sultan. No particular other person could interfere in the decision making. The minister in charge of the army was called Aris-i-Mumalik. Aris-i-Mumalik. The Aris was not the commander-in-chief of the army. He was just a minister who was in charge of the army. Commander-in-chief was basically the king himself, the highest authority. Sultan himself was the one who commanded the armed forces. Then there were two other ministers or important departments also known as Diwan-e-Risalat and Diwan-e-Insha. Now these Diwan-e-Insha and Diwan-e-Risalat, what were these two important departments? Diwan-e-Risalat was the one which dealt with the all religious matters, and it was presided over by, or it was led by, a chief sadar. This chief sadar, who was generally a leading qazi or a religious, you can say, learner. The qazi was the chief sadar and looked after all these religious matters. He was the head of the Department of Justice and advised Sultan also on civil as well as religious matters. Why? So that the justice could be given appropriate as even in the sight of the religion. And the Diwan-e-Insha dealt with the state correspondence, the general state-related affairs, general state-related, economy-related, or political issues. They were all dealt in Diwan-e-Insha. So Risalat was related to religion, and you can say Insha was related to the internal political administrative affairs of the state. During the Sultanate, the empire was